at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that way it will not interfere anybody with the lights at night, that type of thing.
All right, does anybody, wow, they're on now, aren't they? Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Wade? Jim? All right, does anybody in the audience want to add anything to this? All right, Tommy, what, I should have called on you first.
Yes, ma'am. This is a variance request from the Aiken County School District to allow electronic message centers at these 3 schools. Electronic message centers are not allowed by right in the P Public Zoning District. So they're asking for 2 variances. One is to allow the electronic message center in the P or public use zoning district on these lots. And 2, for the electronic message center to be 60% of square footage of the overall sign, where our zoning ordinance allows it to be only 50% of the sign.
The message center itself.
Message center itself, yes, ma'am.
Now, why would you request for it to be larger?
Well, that's the standard size they would like to go with for the messaging, for it to be seen mostly. The other reason is in electronic signs, you can't take rows off and make the same amount of letters. You have to have so many pixels to form a letter, and that's one of the sizes that you have to go to. If not, it would drop it down quite a bit, smaller than 50%. And so therefore, that's why it's at that size, so they can be read in this type thing. And that's basically the same thing we did over here at the other one. And I recall, I think Mr. Summers got there and said, we got to get this right tonight because I know he's going to be back. So that's why we stayed with it as well.
All right, thank you. Do you, anyone else want to speak to this?
No, ma'am.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So the previous sign for North Augusta Middle, we had the hours of operation from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Or, excuse me,
6 a.m. to 11.
limiting the hours of operation from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. with the sign being expected to follow all regulations of the sign code. Is that
Yeah,
the way
we
it's
put a
set up?
timer on them. They're going to be turning, the signs will turn off at 11 p.m. and come on at 6 a.m. unless you want something different.
And this will have the dimming light like we put on the last one.
Yeah, they have automatic light adjustment to dimmer and to brighten if it needs to be brightened, but it automatically adjusts, which is what you want.
So they were dim from those hours, from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
They dim automatically. At night, they use probably less than 20% of their power. And the only time they burn brighter, which you really don't recognize, is in the daytime. When the more the sun's shining on the sign, the brighter light needs to be on the diodes in order to be seen.
So this sign's the same one as you've installed at Augusta Middle?
Exact same one every place we've done so far.
And you've done quite a few over Aiken County, for Aiken County School District.
This will be approximately the 30th.
Right, right. I remember you talked about that with the middle school and North Augusta Middle School.
Right.
All right.
You know, and I don't believe, I might be opening a can of worms, I don't think anyone's complained about the other one that I know of. You know, we have signs and belvederes I mentioned last time. We have not got any complaints about it. We have one that sits in somebody's yard over in the valley, and they love it. I don't know what for, but you know, we put a timer on it as well. But you know, the timer seems to be the answer to, you know, and I agree with that. I wouldn't want that on my bedroom window coming through all night long either.
Right, right. Okay, thank you.
We want to work with you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Now, for those of you that are new here, we have to meet 10 criteria before our variance can be granted. And if it doesn't meet all 10, it doesn't get granted. And if we run across one that it stops, that we can't grant that one, then we don't go any further. All right, these These will be read in, for all three right now, unless somebody needs them repeated. An unnecessary hardship exists. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale, and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. Number 6, if the approval of an application for a variance from the provisions of Article 3 signs regulating the size, height, appearance, or location of a sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall find that no alternative signage solution that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available and would provide adequate visibility, recognition, and understanding. The Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, to change zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance shall not be granted. Number 9, the fact that property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. Number 10, in granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, and other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. Based on these findings of facts, the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny the request. Does anybody have any questions about those? All right. Now, Tommy, I just need a clarification here. I know we want to vote on each one separately, but I'm not going to read those things all over again.
I understand.
Okay. So for Mossy Creek, which is on, oh, I'm sorry, you may sit down. An unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant states that the proposed sign meets the needs for the school to communicate important information to students, parents, and the public, and that signs of a similar size with reader boards have not been rejected by any school location by other jurisdictions. Is everybody okay with that one?
Yeah, it standardizes it.
It standardized them, right. I think, well, that's what I think for Paul Knox and for North Augusta Elementary also. Okay?
I'm good.
There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. The applicant states that schools typically fall within residential environments, but the current code does not address its role in the character of the surrounding neighborhoods. We've been through this before, and we talked about maybe doing something with the development code to address that. So are we okay with that one?
Yes.
All three of them. I think it's wonderful that schools are in residential areas. So I think we can take care of that in our maybe new development code. The conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The applicant states that the school is unique in its service to the community. Unlike a business advertising services for a profit, the electronic reader board will be used to improve communication between the school, its students, and their parents. Jim, you okay? And that's for all three. Because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property will effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And the applicant states that the North Augusta Development Code does not directly address school signage. Their argument in that prohibiting electronic reader board would unnecessarily limit the amount of information the school is able to transmit through signage. They state that the overall sign area proposed is smaller than that allowed by the code and otherwise meets the intent of the code if the electronic reader board is accepted.
Good.
The authorization of a variance would not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale or the creation of potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. The applicants state that the proposed sign will not hinder other property signage and that the location will not create excessive noise, light, traffic, or late-night activity. Staff notes that the electronic reader board creates the potential for a nighttime light pollution, but that the majority of residents are located beyond direct view of the sign location on the property. Now, this is true for for Mossy Creek and North Augusta Elementary. Now, I don't quite understand where the sign is going to be at Paul Knox in relation to the houses across the street.
It's going to be, on the exit driveway of
I tell you, it's a long time since I've had kids up there. I don't know what the exit driveway is
the,
anymore.
they have two driveways, I'm trying to remember the name of the streets there.
Wells and Pisgah. Pisgah.
That's the one that goes kind of north-south.
Mhm.
It was down at the entrance driveway. And, they're gonna put it at the exit driveway so it can be seen. Probably better for people going into the other driveways up at the front too as well. It's, up on that back sidewalk is ways, down on a little hill where that whole property slopes that
It's,
way.
right, it's all on a hill.
It's going to be on Pisgah Road, right? Where the current sign is?
That's the one that carries north-south.
Right.
Yes. Is that
So
where
it's-
it's going?
Yes, it's gonna be on the same road as the current one's on.
Oh, okay.
Not on the entrance of the driveway, on the exit side.
Okay.
Well, what do you think about that I'm in agreement with it for North Augusta and for, Mossy Creek. What do y'all think about that for Paul Knox?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's going to be addressed in
All
conditions.
right, so we'll agree on that one. And then, in the approval of an application for a variance from the provisions of Article 13 signs regulating the size, height, appearance, and location of a sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall also find that no alternative signage solutions that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available and would provide adequate visibility, recognition, and understanding. And the, this is from the applicant and the staff. Electronic reader board signs are allowed in certain zoning districts, for example, office commercial, general commercial, thoroughfare commercial, and industrial districts, but cannot exceed 50% of the sign area. The applicants request a reader board occupying 60% of the total sign area. The applicant states that the cost to maintain a non-standard sign is significantly higher and would lead to the need for additional training by operators. What do y'all think about this one? He's explained the 50%.
Yeah. Yes.
Are y'all
I'm
okay
good.
with that?
That's good. It's the same as the other one.
Right. The Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district. Signs are allowed in public zoning to extend physically a non-conforming use of land. The variance does not do anything about extending non-conforming use, physically non-conforming use of land. To change zoning districts' boundaries shown on the official map, where we are not trying to change the zoning district boundaries. If number 8, so we're okay with number 7
Yes.
then. It's usually an easy one. If the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. The applicant states the location and use of the property warrant the variance request. I'm okay with that one.
It's consistency with other signs.
It really is. The fact that property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. Well, we recognize that the property is operated as a public school and the request is not based on profitability of the land. So I think that we're okay on that one. In granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. This variance, if granted, will apply only to these properties and the sign details as submitted. Should the sign need to be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place at the time, or request another variance if applicable. Staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of the sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 10 and 6. The sign would be expected to follow all the regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitation to hours of operation shall be specified by the board as part of the case study. Now, do we have 11 o'clock?
In the North Augusta, that's what the minutes show,
That's what I thought. The
11
minutes.
o'clock.
And I was thinking it was 10 o'clock, either, whatever the board deems appropriate. Of course, hopefully they update the timer whenever it changes from daylight savings time to standard. But either one, it's just a matter of, do you want the neighborhood going dark at 10 o'clock? Or should the neighborhood have it on till 11 o'clock?
It just goes dim at those hours, right?
Goes dim.
It does
Yeah.
not
Can
go
you
back.
read it,
No, it's
Mr.
supposed
Wade?
to go off.
Go off all the way,
All the
okay.
way.
That's what I thought, but I don't ride by North Augusta Middle School much at night anymore. So what do y'all think about the time here, or any other conditions you might want to suggest?
Say 11 to be consistent with other.
All right. So 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Well, we've satisfied all those. Do we have a motion, Kevin, on this? Or is there any discussion on it? And I think we need a motion on each one.
Okay. Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 22-005, Mossy Creek sign, a request by Aiken County Public Schools for a variance pursuant to sections, Article 13, signs, Section 13.8.3.L.I. and 13.8.3.L.II. Signage allowed for non-residential districts and uses, electronic reader boards, district, and sign area of the North Augusta Development Code to increase the reader board and sign area be granted with the following conditions. There are two. First, this variance will apply only to this property and the sign details as submitted. Should the sign need to be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place at the time or request another variance if applicable. Number two, staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of the sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. The sign would be expected to follow all the regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitations to hours of operation should be specified by the board as part of the case order.
Second. All right, all in favor of Mossy Creek sign?
Aye.
All right, Mossy Creek has their sign. Now, do we have one on Paul Knox?
Gotta find it.
We used a lot of paper on this package here.
Yes, ma'am.
Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 22-006, Paul Knox sign, a request by Aiken County Public Schools for variance pursuant to section Article 13, signs section 13.8.3.L.I and 13.8.3.L.II. Signs allowed for non-residential districts and uses, electronic reader board districts, and sign area of the North Augusta Development Code to increase the reader board sign area be granted with the following conditions. This variance will apply only to this property, and the sign details as submitted. Should the sign need to be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place at the time of request, or request another variance if applicable. Number 2, staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of the sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. The sign would be expected to follow the regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitations to hours of operation should be specified by the board as part of the case order.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's Paul Knox's sign. Now, North Augusta Elementary.
Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 22-007, North Augusta Elementary School sign, a request by Aiken County Public Schools for a variance pursuant to sections Article 13 signs, section 13.8.3.L.I and 13.8.3.L.II. Sign is allowed for non-residential districts and uses, electronic reader boards, district, and sign area of the North Augusta Development Code to increase the reader board sign area be granted with the following conditions. Variance will apply only to this property and the sign details as submitted. Should the sign be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place at the time or request another variance if applicable. Number 2, staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of the sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. The sign would be expected to follow all the regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitations to hours of operation should be specified by the board as part of the case order.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so all three of those schools have their permission to have their reader boards, and I know that you will take care of those in a manner that's consistent with the other signs. So thank you very much for coming. All right, our next agenda item is ZV 22-008, a request by Adams Brothers Properties, LLC, represented by the Prather Company, for a variance from North Augusta Development Code Table 3-3, dimensional standards for the R-7 small lot, single-family residential zoning district. Minimum lot width to allow a minimum lot width of 22 feet for a townhouse development. The appeal affects approximately 43.15 acres located along West Martintown Road, tax parcel number 106-00-00-041. Now, Tommy, can you speak to this, please?
Yes, ma'am. And I'd like to give a little bit of background as well. Shortly after I came here, one of the questions that I get, not just from this developer, but from developers that want to annex properties in but may need a variance is, what is the process? I don't want to annex my property and then not get the variance and I don't get developed, which is, to me, is a reasonable question. I consulted with the city attorney and was advised that that the Board of Zoning Appeals, even though the property is not in the city proper at this point in time, that the Board of Zoning Appeals could hear the matter and grant or deny the variance request, contingent upon it being annexed into the property or into the city. So based on that, that is how this one is proceeding. It is currently not in the city of North Augusta, but staff would recommend that if it is approved, as a condition of approval, that it, one, be required to annex within 1 year, and two, it also be required to annex prior to development. That ensures it meeting with our development standards, and that is something, in talking to the city attorney, he mentioned, and that's not included in the staff report. So, having said that, when we met with the developer originally, there was two ways we could do this. He could request annexation as an R5, which would allow apartments. He did not want to have that confusion of being associated with the possibility of apartments. From the staff standpoint, there's a concern on council about the number of proposed apartments in the city. And once it were to be annexed and zoned R5, there's nothing that would require this project to be built on the property. So from staff's standpoint, it would be good not to come in as an R5 as well. The property, there's a whole different number of things that could happen as development proceeds along the way. This developer has been straight up. I understand what he wants to do, but you know, in my mind, with the economy, I still remember 2008, and things can change overnight. So when we talked through it, and there was some staff suggestion there that they annex as an R7 and then request a variance for the lot width, as I think y'all have heard a couple times before. That way it would both allow them to do the development in townhouses, but also protect the city of any development for other type multifamily like apartments. So that is how we got to where we're at today. It's 43.15 acres. You will, at the dais, I gave you an updated revised site plan. And if you'll notice on there, out of the number of lots that they have, 76 lots will meet the minimum lot width for the R7 zoning. 48 lots are requested to have 26 foot wide lots, and 33 lots are requested to have 22 foot lots. The property is contiguous through the Oak Creek subdivision that backs up to it. As you'll see on the slide, you do not have, I've had people say, well, you're going to annex down the road. No, this backs up to the existing city limits subdivision and would be a natural extension of the city there. The This gives you another idea. I want to skip by the ones that they submitted and get to the revised one. This is the revised concept plan here that we received yesterday in response to some questions that we had received. And as you see, the layout is pretty much the same. I think in adjusting some lot lines, they may have lost a few lots. And then this is an indication of what the townhouses will look like. Y'all have any questions for staff?
I'd like to clarify the numbers from your email and what's on the handout. The total units 157. What's on the drawing shows 61 22-foot units and 96 of the 26.
I think if it's all right with you, Mr. Skaggs, I'll let the developer answer that one. I was getting these numbers from him.
Oh,
How are y'all doing tonight? Thank you
Open the public hearing now. Would you please state your name and address?
Yes, ma'am. Luke Boatwright, 987 Rocky Fall Lane, Irmo, South Carolina.
All right, would you please raise your right hand?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Luke Boatwright with Stanley Martin Homes, based here in Augusta off Walton Way Extension. We have a lot of projects in Aiken and working our way towards the river and on the other side of the river
Oh,
as well.
is your microphone on?
I think so. Do I need to talk? Okay, I'll lean up a little better. The revised concept plan that we sent to Mr. Paradise yesterday has 157 total lots. As he said, 76 of those being 40-foot wide. Those will be the end units. And then the interiors, 48 of the interiors will be 26-foot wide lots, and 33 of the interior units will be 22-foot wide lots. The buildings on the end lots will also be either 26 or 22 feet wide, but the lot will be 40 feet to conform with the current R7 zoning. As Mr. Paradise mentioned, when we first brought this project to the city, we wanted no part of being mixed up with a multifamily development, bringing it into the city. And the way the development code is currently written, we'd have to come through this BZA, which is why we're doing this. We understand how the economy is, and we wanted our intentions to be single-family dwellings from the outset and not try to feel like we were coming to city council or planning commission with any other ideas other than single-family dwelling, which is our intent, which is why we're coming through the R7 zoning as requested. I will tell you just some percentages. 52% of the lots requested are needing a variance. So 48% are not. Of the 43 acres that the property is total, only 58% of those 43 acres will be left as wetlands, open space, and green space. So we'll only be developing, I think it's 18 to 20 acres total for this development here.
so I got a question. So
Yes, sir.
In past applications, looking at wanting a variance from the 40-foot minimum width, developers were saying that was, and it's like it's in your write-up, unusually high for a townhome.
It is, yes, sir.
And if you build it that big, it would be priced almost out of the price, I guess, out of the price
You're going to
range.
price yourself into a single-family market, which is not going to be affordable for a townhome.
Right, and so I guess you're going to be okay?
No, so that was my explanation. We will still have 40-foot lots on the end units. We will still be building either a 22-foot wide townhome
Oh, okay.
or a 26-foot townhome on that lot. We're just making the lot 40 feet to make sure that those lots are not needing a variance, because we didn't want to request every lot to be a variance, only the ones that deemed to be necessary, which are actually the interior units.
So you're
We're still building
The width.
we're still building a townhome on that lot that's affordable for that type of buyer.
yeah, okay. Thank
Bill or Jim, y'all have any questions?
I have one back for Mr. Paradise. So if we grant it, can we just, for this project only, and if it does not go through or pass or get annexed, it goes back to the original zoning, and then whatever comes back to us?
Correct. Right now, it's not in the city.
Correct.
So if it is in one of the conditions that you can place on it is that it be substantially similar to this conceptual drawing. If it's not annexed in the city, it remains county outside the
Edgefield
city,
County.
we have, no jurisdiction. If it were to come in as an R7, and you can do it one of two ways, another developer could come in and develop it to this plan, because if you make it conditional, this conceptual plan, you'd have to comply with that. Or you could make it, for this applicant. Either way would work. But if it was conceptually like this, you'd probably end up with the same thing.
I thought a variance died with the change of ownership if it hasn't been developed yet. That's not correct?
I think a variance runs with the land.
Okay. But this variance, the annexation has to take place within a year or the variance is gone.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would put the condition on there that the annexation must come prior to development of the property, and contingent upon it being as conceptually shown.
We have no problem with that.
All right. I mean, I knew a variance went with the land, but when it hadn't been developed yet, that's what I was thinking, that it died with that, and the new owner had to come in. Okay, anybody have any more questions of Mr. Boatright?
Just one. You said that how many acres were actually being developed and how many would be?
We are at 43.8 total acreage, and 25.61 of those acres are being preserved for open space, wetlands, and green space.
Now, I have a question. 25 acres is being preserved.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, is that wetlands usable for recreation? I mean, can you put a park around it, or is it not usable at all?
I can't tell you the exact figure of unusable, but there is, based off of what I see here, there is absolutely space that is able to use for recreation. That all the open space you see is not water or wetlands.
Right,
It can be used for recreation. Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other questions of him?
No, ma'am.
All right, does anybody else like to speak to this situation? Please come forward. All right, state your name and your address.
My name is Eddie Kale. My address is 114 Spring Lake Court, North Augusta.
Cato?
Pardon?
Cato, is that?
Kale.
Oh, Cato, okay.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right, I just wanted to make sure. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I was involved in the zoning of that property with Edgefield County years ago. And I was already thought that it was zoned not for apartments or condos or townhouses, whatever you want to call them. And what's happening, they coming in there with all these small subdivisions, and that's putting overloads on the schools. Not just on the schools, on the road. Another developer from Augusta come close to me and is building 425 homes. And I don't know how many acres, but they're small. I mean, you can't even drive to the backyard or nothing, So that's what's happening. We moved out there to
Tell
be
me where,
in the
would you
country.
refresh my memory as where Spring Oak Lane is, or
Where what is?
where your home is?
I live on Spring Lake.
Spring
It's
Lake.
probably 4 miles from this place,
Okay,
but I go down Martintown Road every
Sure.
day just about.
okay.
and it was zoned for single-family dwellings to start with, and it wasn't supposed to be. A few places were commercial, but nothing like it is now. And what's happening, when we put this in effect, we didn't know that all they got to do is come to North Augusta and say, we want to be annexed. And when you get annexed, the zoning that we put in place is gone. And then y'all can put whatever y'all want. But I'm just hoping, I know y'all don't live in Edgefield County and have nothing to do with Edgefield County, but hoping y'all will respect the zoning that we put in place.
And it was zoned for a single-family.
My understanding, now I could be wrong, he probably knows more about it than me because he used to be the administrator up there. I know when Mr. Adams was the administrator up there when we put this zoning in, at one time, it had, you know, single-family homes and stuff. And even our own county went against us and put those ones on Murray Road that we didn't want. Nobody on that road wanted that. You know.
Just for clarification, and I did reach out to the planning director up in Edgefield County to verify the way I was reading the development code in Edgefield County. Under the current zoning, townhomes are allowed in that zoning district, whereas this is a minimum lot width of 40 feet with all of the, even with the variance, the smallest lot width you have is 22 feet. The development code with Edgefield County would allow 18-foot lot widths. So the driver here is probably more sewer than it is to zoning. And by coming into the city, they'll be able to connect to the city sewer.
So
And
you're
Edgefield-
saying it's, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, Edgefield County sewer doesn't go out that far.
Correct.
They're on septic and wells.
Well, we have county water.
Go give county water,
Yes, ma'am,
okay.
but we're on
But not county sewage.
Right.
They have a county, they do water and sewer, both, but the water district does not have sewer available in that area. They do have water available, so it'd be served by Edgefield County Water and Sewer Authority for water, and then the sewer would be served by the city of North Augusta.
So if I understand you correctly, that as of right now, if we don't zone it in, they can go ahead and build townhouses right now. But they could be even smaller. Instead of 22 feet, they can be 18 feet.
Yes, sir. If they could get the sewer figured out.
Correct. But I'm just saying, they could build them regardless if we were
The only-
here or not. No
my
offense,
understanding-
whatever.
and
But
we
like I
just-
said, I'm kind of,
Yeah.
you know, from your standpoint, is that
We
it could
just
come
got
regardless.
sewer
Yep.
to the school this year, if I'm not mistaken. So I had no idea that sewer is even close to where he's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, it depends upon city sewer and.
I'm not talking about
Edgefield
city of
County
North
water
Augusta, I'm
sewer.
talking about Edgefield County sewer.
Right, and Edgefield County sewer is not reasonable to get to that property.
Right.
So,
Whereas-
Mr. Cagle, do you understand what he's saying, that it can be developed as townhouses, whether it's in the city or not?
That's what he said. I've still got some of my own zoning papers that we,
Well, it may have been changed. Would that have been possible?
Yes, ma'am. The a zoning ordinance is a recommendation from Planning Commission and with the county government, 3 readings and a zoning ordinance changes. I would suggest that he may reach out to the planning department if he has questions about it.
I
In
will.
Edgefield County.
And if I'm not mistaken, on up the road, those are, the smallest they can go is 1 acre lots.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, and now we're getting into Edgefield County
That's
stuff.
right, that's right.
You know,
But all I'm saying,
beyond our
I'd like for
board.
y'all to respect the zone, well, if it's zoned for 22 foot, I don't have a,
Well, it's zoned for 18 feet,
that's what I'm
actually,
saying.
so-
That's what I'm saying. I didn't realize that, so. I
It's
reckon
probably
I'm-
been changed, but
I'm
thank
fighting
you
a
so much
losing
for
battle.
coming and participating. We appreciate it. Would anybody else like to speak?
My name is Glenn Baranowski. I live at 1410 West Martintown Road.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. So I live across the street from the proposed development within 200 feet, according to the recipient of the letter that you all sent me. So I would like clarification. So part of this is education for me. I thought in February it was zoned for R7 near Martintown Road and R10 on the lower or back part of the development. Does this appeal change it such that this is all townhouses?
The, the applicant previously applied for annexation. That application went to the Planning Commission, which recommended annexation. It went to first reading of City Council and passed. And I was notified by the developers that there were some issues with wetlands, and please hold off. So the annexation was tabled. And as you notice how the development is really tilted, I guess, to one side. And that's because when they did the wetlands delineation, they found that where they was going to have the R10 over on the right side, they found that was wetlands. So they went back and redesigned the project based on the area that they could use versus what they had planned on using and couldn't use. And this was the plan that they submitted. And rather than starting, instead of taking it off the table and having second reading and pass the annexation through with an amended ordinance to make it all R7, the developer wanted to start from scratch so that everything is transparent and the public sees it, and we want it that way too from the get-go. So basically, yes, it changes everything, and that's because the development changed before it got through fruition.
Because of the wetlands issue.
Yes, ma'am. There was unusable area.
Right, right. So nothing can go back there,
Correct.
is what we're saying.
This application is tied just to an R7 zoning.
Yes, sir. And the annexation request, when I receive it, my understanding will be for the entire parcel to be zoned R7. But having said that, that area that are wetlands is an unbuildable area within the development.
So this board does that set the zoning.
Correct. You are allowing a variance for the lot widths for an R7 contingent upon it being annexed as an R7.
Is it unusual to find that information out, that it's not able to be developed as R10? There is that poor due diligence, because I've lived there for 50 years and I could have walked across the street and told you that.
Yeah, that's the development process. I really can't say that it's poor due diligence. I don't know that it's good due diligence. That's just how it played out.
Okay, thank you. I don't know who can answer this question. At full occupancy, how many residents can be in this development?
I think there's 157 units.
Was 157 units.
And so that's, it's just like your house. We don't control how many people live in your house. So it's based on how many people live in the household. These will be individual lots. So that pushes owner-occupied housing. Now, there's nothing to say that somebody couldn't buy one of these and rent it out, just like you rent out a house. But, there's only so many square footage in there, but we can't say that only so many people can live in the house.
How many vehicles is it sized for?
We will, when we get to the subdivision plan, this will probably require a traffic impact analysis, but we're not to that point yet.
Okay, thank you. Am I correct to assume that the only entry/exit point will be off Martintown Road?
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Boatright, is that your understanding also, that, but that's an emergency entrance exit only?
Well, when you look at the, if there was some way to interconnect this, we would like to, for another, with another subdivision, with another way out. But Martintown Road is really the only street access this particular parcel has.
Well, what is the ability of us to request a traffic study before we do this?
A traffic study will be required. You can certainly, as you've done before, require it as a condition of approval. But as you did before, that traffic study is going to be required.
Okay.
When we get down to the subdivision requirements, a traffic impact analysis will be required for a project generating this many trips. If a project generates more than 50 new vehicle trips,
15?
50,
50 is what I
50,
thought, yeah.
during the peak hours, and that's key, during the peak hours, and it trips the requirement for a traffic impact analysis. I feel sure that this one will. It's just that one step at a time with development. And just like we get here is for the variance, then it will go to the city council. City council may or may not annex it. If they decided they don't want to annex it, then it dies. Then if they annex it, then the next step would be for it to go before the planning commission. And at that point, we would require the traffic impact analysis.
So the traffic study, just for clarification, would look at the delays of getting in and out of that entrance. Is that right?
Correct. And if any highway improvements are necessitated by engineering practices, and then if they were say a deceleration lane, then the SCDOT would have to issue a permit to allow that, and the developer would have to pay to install it.
So it could say that if the delays were long enough, it would require a second entrance into the development, possibly, or I don't know.
Well, if you put a second entrance, it's still coming out on Martintown
Martintown Road.
Road, so you're really not helping yourself any.
I just got a near and dear, another example where I live.
Well,
I can't get over it.
Traffic study.
I'm sorry.
I understand, and I always like, I always prefer a subdivision to have a back door, as I call it. Just like whenever you go into a business, where's that remote exit? I look at subdivisions similar to that. But how does the land lay out? And sometimes it doesn't work. And we will be looking at the traffic impact at the site plan.
But it looks at intersections primarily, not individual driveways. Is that right?
Correct.
So the next intersection is toward the city. What is that? A light?
You're looking at intersections and traffic within a half mile of the subdivision.
And if it's within a half mile, then the developer may have to do something. Is that right?
If it trips a required improvement, yes, sir.
So I have some prepared remarks. Is that okay to continue?
Sure.
So I would be stating my opposition to this development, even if I was before Edgefield County. as you all, okay? So as a person that lives across the street, about 25 yards up from this, I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I oppose the development, while that's not why we're here tonight. It would be to oppose more people occupying that development than what I thought was originally planned and intended. And that would be the entire 25 acres being wetlands and the rest being, townhomes. And the 4 areas are traffic. We've talked about that once or a little bit already tonight. In the morning and the evenings in a single driveway, I have to wait minutes to get in and out because of the speed that's coming from Edgefield County to North Augusta in the afternoon going the other way. And that's a dangerous curve. I can't believe Ray Brown's not going to have issues with his new office at that curve. But when you put that many people on that curve, not only is it much more traffic than it was ever intended, I don't believe it's safe. And no one goes 50 miles an hour on that stretch of the road, even though that's what it is limited for. Secondly, crime. When you bring that many people that close together, you're going to have a propensity for the neighborhood changing, if I could say it that way. There's a more transient nature to townhomes than there are houses and dwellings. I think sometimes there's a less interest in the good of the area. And I think we're going to bear the brunt of a potentially increased nature of the transient people that would be in a townhome and the potential areas of crime that may come. Thirdly, nature. I've lived in a rural Edgefield County for a reason. If I wanted to live in the city, I would. If I wanted to live across from the city, I would. I realize I don't control that. So I guess I'm just taking the opportunity given to me as a citizen to express my comments are the noise pollution and the light pollution. I'm not in favor of living across the street from a townhome development. And so I'm just being personal as I say that. And fourthly, traffic, crime, the natural changes. Fourthly is the transformational change this is going to bring to the lower Edgefield district, Edgefield County district, and the Meriwether district. It'll never be the same. The reason why there's not many people in this building tonight is there's not many homeowners that have property adjacent to this development. Very few, probably less than 10. I don't call that progress in a positive way for me. I know it may be viewed that way as a city, and I get it. I'm not naive enough to not understand that. So I'm going to speak to you in closing as someone who has cared about this area, lived in this area my whole life, except for 4 years at Clemson and 2 years working in Northeast Georgia. I think this is just a business deal to Adams and to Prather. It's not just a business deal to me. It changes the entire environment in the area in which I grew up, in the area in which I wished to stay. So I just want to conclude with this. Would you want to live across from this townhome or Martintown Ridge? I don't. Do you want and cherish the responsibility for transforming this area from a rural area into a townhome development in perpetuity? Once you go down this road, you're never going back. For me, I wouldn't. And lastly, I just want to utmostly say thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts and opinions. I don't take that lightly, and I appreciate the professional, courteous way in which you've listened. So thank you very much.
Mr. Baranowski, thank you so much for coming, and we certainly understand your feelings. And your expression of your opinions should go before the Planning Commission, correct? Also.
He certainly has the opportunity to speak not only before the Planning Commission, but as far as City Council too.
City Council also.
Remember, the Planning Commission cannot vote it down. The Planning Commission can't stop it. Once the annexation petition is filed and it starts through the process, The planning commission is only a recommending body. So they make a recommendation to annex or not to annex. And then city council has the final say. So you have an opportunity to really speak to both bodies. There will be an opportunity there. Now, there won't be, there will not be, you may not get an additional, you will probably get a letter about the planning commission, probably not about city council. There should be a sign go up on the property for the annexation as well, for planning commission.
Well, this is completely off the subject, but while I've got you here, I have a question.
Okay.
Why is your area called, your property called Poverty Hill? I've always wanted to
Okay.
know that.
This is my mother right here. If you go look at the ancient maps, I still call them ancient. Do you want to tell a story? You want me to tell it? So during Revolutionary War? Okay. So the reason it's called Poverty Hill is during the Revolutionary War, when revolutionary soldiers went up on top of the hill. By the way, that's where my mother and my father live, on Poverty Hill. Okay. You're talking about family property on that side of Martintown Road, all the way to in front of this development, to give you a perspective
Right.
of the frame of reference we're coming from. Okay. When the revolutionary soldiers went up on top of that hill to get food from that family, they realized they were poorer than the soldiers were, and they called it Poverty Hill. And it's been that way on the maps ever since. So that's why it's
I've
Poverty
always
Hill.
been
Used to have a
curious.
post office there that was called Poverty Hill.
Just been curious about that.
That's it. We have a long legacy in the area, and we cherish it.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and you can go to the website of the city and find out when Planning Commission is going to meet and on this subject, and when City Council is going to meet on this subject.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Would anybody else like to speak to this? All right, then we'll close the public hearing. And the variance cannot be granted unless we agree on all of these things. An unnecessary hardship exists. The extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular property, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, and the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the districts may include structures that are significantly out of scale, the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. Number 6 is about signs. That does not apply here. The Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, to extend physically non-conforming use of land, to change zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. If the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Number 9, the fact that property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. In granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. Based on these findings of facts, the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny the request. All right. One thing to make clear here is that we cannot change zoning here, and we cannot prevent this from coming. This is simply a variance within the community that we're talking about here, the subdivision we're talking about. We can't do anything about that. That's out of our realm, correct?
Correct.
All right. The first one, an unnecessary hardship exists. Now, let's see, we've changed this somewhat because he is going to have some 40-foot widths in here. So we're not, really don't have to deal with the ones that are ever how many, the 56 or something, that 76 are going to be 40 feet or greater. So we're dealing with the 26 and the 22, correct?
Yes, ma'am. There'd be 48 lots and 38 lots,
Okay.
33 lots.
Right, right. So, yeah, I think I said that backwards. 33 lots and 48 lots. And so he is going to have 40-foot townhome lots in some of his area. So what do you all think about this?
But the variance is needed for the interior, the inside.
Right.
The ends are 40 feet, but
The
the
ends are 40
insides have
feet,
to
it's
be,
the insides.
smaller.
You're okay on that? There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The applicant states the topography of the site, in addition to wetlands, limit the amount of developable area. To avoid wetlands impact, the developer wishes to utilize the areas of the property best suited for development. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, there is a lot of wetlands. The topography does mess him up a good bit, so I agree. A lot.
Bill,
I-
Kevin?
So, just to, go ahead, Bill.
I was just gonna say, based on just looking at the layout, if you went to single-family homes, even on a small basis, I mean, I know these townhomes are, but I'm saying you really wouldn't sell out. I mean, compare it to the lots up above. It would be probably difficult when you put in the infrastructure to recoup the money or the cost. So on a tight area like this. So I think that there are some conditions that
All right, so are y'all okay with that one then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bill? Okay. The conditions do not generally apply to other property in the city. The applicant states that other properties in the city have been developed with lots less than 40 feet in an R7 zoning district. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Norwood is an example.
Norwood is an example.
But, so the 40-foot minimum lot width for townhomes, does that mean, my impression from earlier discussions, applications, was that number wasn't really reasonable for townhomes. Doesn't fit. Had a bad standard in the development code.
Based on my experience in planning and as being a building inspector, that's correct.
And that was the basis of the precedent set by the other developments.
I remember, and just when I was working in Aiken in inspections, and townhomes were a new thing. We had no place to have a townhome, no zoning district. It wasn't addressed, and that was the typical way. Was they had variances for the lot widths so that you could make it work.
Yeah, so if you made them all 40, then those interior ones would be so big you couldn't sell them. Is that right?
That yes,
It doesn't fit. Okay.
it wouldn't. Yeah, and there's a lot of laying out when you lay out a house that's beyond. You take it. One of the contractors explained that to you, but you know, maximizing certain things come in standard widths and lengths, and to make that work. And if you get out of those standards, yeah, it's costs money.
Well, I had note that this, on this particular item 3, you just read, that example came with the same concerns we just heard. Exactly. I mean, it was exactly worded, same concerns.
I understand.
Because it's rural there and there's not,
Putting a townhomes,
yeah.
building townhomes and a subdivision of the houses and increasing traffic.
But as of right now, it could be done
Yes.
without us.
It
Right,
can be done.
right.
We would not be involved and it still
Right.
can be built.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay.
All right, number 4, because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And so he's got a number of them that are 40 feet wide, the lot is. And so looking at these others that are not, so it doesn't seem to be that he could put what he wanted to in there on 40-foot lots. So that's mainly because so much of the land is undevelopable, not developable, whatever. All right, are we okay on that one?
I agree.
The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale, the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. The applicant states the variance will not be a detriment to the adjacent properties because 50% of the land will be reserved as green space, wetlands, and natural buffers.
So the traffic word comes up in this one.
Right.
So that can be a condition, right? Or it's the traffic study.
A traffic study will be required. It's just a matter of when does that trip. Prior to the site plan approval or the subdivision plan approval, project this size would need a traffic study would be required. So whether it's a condition of approval for y'all or whether it's already a statutory regulation, that's going to require one. The developers are aware of that going in. We've had that discussion. It's just a matter of when they do that. It would be required prior to the subdivision plan. In other words, when they apply to the planning commission for the subdivision preliminary plat approval, a traffic study will be required at that time by the development code, whether you put a condition on it or not.
And so would their traffic study actions have to be addressed before the city approved it?
That's the planning commission. Typically, that would be typically our recommendation. And if there's improvements warranted, that's passed on to the developer. DOT can also require improvements as well. They have to provide access. They have to approve the curb cut in this situation. So they can put conditions on it as well.
But if DOT requires the developer to pay for the improvements there, and the developer can't do that, doesn't do that, whatever, isn't willing to do it, then
It doesn't move forward.
it doesn't move forward. Okay.
And from our end, if it's a requirement and the developer chooses not to do it, it won't move forward.
So-
You know, if it's a city requirement.
Right, right. But the city would not be, if it's annexed in, the city would not be obligated to do that
Correct.
road improvement.
Correct.
Well, if the city wouldn't, if the road improvement is required, the city, and it's annexed in, the city would not be on the hook for that road improvement. No, right, right.
So, in answering this question, how can we say that there's no harm regarding traffic without traffic study? Or we just hanging our hat on having the actions have to be addressed that come out of the traffic study?
It's all in how you defined. Let me see. How do you define the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late night activity? And I think that is something that each commissioner brings to the board. Do you have a value there. It's not an engineering analysis that staff can give you this or that. There's, and please, I say this with a great deal of respect, because I tell this to folks all the time. Our planning commission and our board of zoning appeals do not leave their common sense at the front door. And there again, this is one of those things where it's a judgment. This is, you hear the applicant, you hear the community, you take your common sense, you look at it, and what do you decide? So I can't tell you that it is or it isn't. That's, a decision that each board member has to make.
So this traffic study has certain standards,
Yes, sir.
industry standards that have to be met for delays. And if there are delays at those points that are being evaluated that trip an action, they have to be addressed.
Yes, sir.
Now, there's a question whether it has to be addressed by the developer or the city.
That's not a question, it's the developer. The, and just so, this gets confusing, but the developer pays all of the development cost. The city of North Augusta does not incentivize development. This application was not sought out by the city of North Augusta. It was a request by the developer. The developer will go in and he'll put the water lines, sewer lines, all the infrastructure in. He'll pave the streets, and all that will be at his cost. And then after he gets all of that done, then he will deed it over to city council, where city council may accept it and put it into the city system. So, and then the city, as the development is going forward, they have a fellow that goes out and does inspections to make sure that it is meeting the city standards, so that when they get ready to dedicate it to the city, it meets our standards. So that's another reason why I'd recommend putting that condition on there, if you all approve it, that it be annexed prior to construction, so the city has oversight on all the infrastructure going in.
Now, this is who decides where traffic lights are? DOT?
SCDOT, and I will tell you about a recent conversation I had with somebody that had been talking with DOT, and there is certain engineering standards that has to be met for a traffic light to go in. It's called warrants, is what, it has to be warranted. It has to, and if the city, and just hypothetically, okay, if the city wanted to put a traffic light at that intersection, and I'm assuming, and the city was going to pay for it, DOT would say no and not allow the city to do it unless engineering-wise it's warranted. Because if it's not warranted, it doesn't, it adversely affects the transportation system. So even if the city wants to put a light, remember, DOT owns the road.
All right, well, what are your thoughts then on number 5? With conditions?
Yeah, we'll put those in at the end.
Okay, that's what I meant. Bill?
This is a, when you look at it, and all the ramifications of the development, in a sense, the variance could put some limitations on additional, things, out of scale, potential for creation of excessive noise, like, if you put, I'm sympathetic in a way to Mr. Baranowski's plight, but ultimately, even when under the present Edgefield zoning, this land can be developed.
Right.
As you said at the outset, we don't really control that. So, in an abstract sense, if we approve the variance and put put conditions on it, that would prevent multifamily apartment type complexes from coming in this particular area, which somebody could decide they wanted to do. And
Put apartments in there, you're probably
triple the
quadrupling
the
quantity.
traffic, the people
Right.
living there. So, anyway, looking at it in that respect, which I think you have to do, I don't think number 5 is violated.
Okay.
Ms. Stallworth, if I may, and that is another part of the discussion. If this was annexed as R5, you would have 24 units per acre. At an R7, you have 7 units per acre. So that was another, just looking at the different scale there.
All right, thank you. Number 6 is not applicable.
So we go back to number 5.
Number 5, okay,
So mark me as a no on that one for traffic,
okay.
because this looks way too familiar.
It does.
One way in, a bunch of townhomes, one way in, and from personal experience, from a traffic study that was done in this very similar situation, traffic will triple. And so
And you're living with that.
I'm
now.
living with that prospect of one day.
Because
so-
it's not done yet.
My hunch is traffic will trip it. So I'm gonna be a no.
That is, I go that way often. I go the back way to Greenwood, and there's a lot of traffic on Martintown Road at early in the morning, late in the afternoon, a lot. All right, number 7, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, well, townhomes are permitted, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, we don't do that, to change zoning district boundaries shown in the official zoning map, well, we don't do that, so that's okay. If the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Staff notes that the requirements of the minimum lot width are imposed by the City Development Code for the R7 district. Y'all okay with that one? All right. Number 9, the fact that property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. This is my Achilles heel. Staff recognize that the property may be used more profitably if developed, but it is not the sole grounds for the variance. I don't understand what the other grounds are.
Make it R5, put apartments there. So there's 500 apartments compared to 157. I mean, that's making it more profitable.
Yeah.
They can say, screw this and build apartments. That's why we're going to R7 to try and protect ourselves. Protect the city and protect, and I know it's not which way to go, but for what we're here for is R7.
Right.
And
Which
traffic and all
says that there
other-
should be 40-foot wide lots.
That's correct.
So I'm a no on this one, but Kevin, how are you?
Well, they can develop their property. There's nothing stopping them from doing that, and it's,
Correct.
and
So
it's,
they can make it worse or they can make it better.
Well, it's, and the condition is gotta be annexed as a R7.
Right.
It's only, can't be, excuse me, can't be R5 or anything less.
Or they can leave it like it on is and put apartments in
Bill?
I don't have any problem with none.
All right.
I'm good with that one.
I always have a problem with number 9. In granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building structure or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. Staff notes that the approval is subject to annexation into the city limits as R7 small lot, single-family residential, and major subdivision preliminary plat review and approval by the Planning Commission. Any plans submitted will be required to meet all other requirements of the North Augusta Development Code. The applicant has not provided a civil set for review at this time. Staff recommends the following conditions of approval. The development plan for the project will be generally shown on the concept plan. Now, this is the revised concept plan.
Correct.
Annexation, let's be sure that's in there, Kevin, whatever we do, if we do go with it. Annexation by city council authorizing the R7 zoning shall be achieved within 1 year of variance approval.
And I would recommend adding and developed, or in annex prior to development.
Oh, okay. Well, we had yes on all of them, and there is a no on number 9 and a no on number 5, but we did have a majority on those also. So, any more discussion on this? Kevin, any discussion? Bill, any more discussion? All right, Kevin.
Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 22-008 Martintown Ridge, a request by the Prather Company for variance pursuant to sections Article 3 zoning districts, Table 3-3, dimensional standards for the R7 small lot, single-family residential zoning district, item G, minimum lot width of the North Augusta Development Code to reduce the minimum lot width, be granted with the following conditions. We have 2. The development plan for the project would be as generally shown on the revised concept plan submitted to the BZA. Number 2, annexation by city council prior to development authorizing the R7 zoning shall be achieved within 1 year of variance approval.
All right, a second on that?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Boatright, you have your variance granted there, and,
What, was that a unanimous vote?
it was, yes, I'm sorry. I may not have spoken into the microphone. All right, is there, and I want to thank you all for coming, and it's always good to see the public involved, and so, we appreciate it, and you still have another avenue with the Planning Commission and City Council. So, is there anything else for the good of the group tonight? Tommy?
I don't know of it. I'm not aware of anything, man.
Right now? All right, I have a question. Who cut down the trees on I-20 in front of that?
Close the meeting first.
Well, no, I'm still,
Okay.
this is
Okay.
still open for discussion here. I want to know this. I want it on the record. Who cut down the trees in front of the insulation company there on I-20?
I don't know, but I would imagine, where's the installation company at?
It's on Frontage Road,
Between exit 1 and the river.
right,
got
exit 1 in the river.
I don't know if that's part of the bridge work, and widening, you know, the I-20, or if that's part of some of the maintenance. I know on the eastbound side, they've been clearing out trees from exit 1, between exit 1 and exit 5, and I'm assuming those are DOT contractors. I'll tell you, they're not from the city.
Right, I'm sure of that. I was just curious because we carried on about their signs so it could be seen above the trees.
And then the trees
And the
disappear.
trees are gone, okay? It's just infuriating. All right, anything else? Tommy, you're okay? Y'all are okay with everything? All right, well, the meeting is adjourned.